Happy Wednesday. Sorry I'm a bit late today, but it's been Double Knit Club. Beautiful day. Been lovely and hot. Everybody's been saying, oh boy, it's too hot, boy, it's too hot. Whereas Janet is like, bring it on, bring it on. I come alive when it's warm. I come alive when it's hot. I love the heat. Where everybody else is like, oh, I'm passing out, it's all too hot and sticky. Everybody's like grumbling and oh. And I'm going, I'm absolutely loving it. I'm absolutely fine. It's beautiful. Yeah, I went down the seafront today, down to Cleveland's, as I usually do. The ice cream van was out, you know, selling its ice creams. Plenty of people about. Fishermen were out there fishing in the sea. And lots of kiddies around. I don't know whether they're off school or whether they're just, as we used to say, wagging it. In other words, they're off without permission. But to be fair, a lot of them were quite young, so maybe they weren't at the age where they went to what we used to call proper school. You know, in other words, they were at nursery or nursery school or something like that. So, yeah, I had a nice time, you know, went down. Called in Marks and Spencer's to get a few bits and bats. Called in the Naked Sheep to get some white yarn. I think if you follow me on Facebook, I did put a picture of one of those hexagon jackets that I'd done using white and using the boho spirit. And I actually sold that one. Yeah, wonders will never cease. I actually sold that one. And I was like, when I was doing it, I was like, oh, I really like this, I really like this. But a lady had said to me, was I selling it? So, you know, ever the businesswoman, don't look a gift horse in the mouth. Yes, of course I'm selling it, yeah. And I thought I could always make another one. And of course I never did. And then, true to form, I go into the shed and of course, no white. Never have enough white or black. I am trying my hardest not to buy any more yarn, but of course, white and black. Need it, yeah. So, yeah, I was chatting to the lady in the Naked Sheep. She's actually got a little sign outside, she's got a bench outside saying, come and sit and knit or something, whatever it was. So we were just chatting, and she was crocheting away there on a Tailor Swift inspired like jacket. I don't know whether you've seen them or not. My friend Nathan actually sent me a picture and said, like, was I going to be doing one of these? I would if anybody wanted me to crochet one for pennies, you know, well, money. But would I be making one for myself? No, I'm not exactly a Swiftie, and I am not the right shape, you know, for a Tailor Swift outfit. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that's the photograph of Tailor Swift wearing it. I think Christine Omdahl has done a tutorial, although when I was talking to the lady from the Naked Sheep, she said it was more of a tutorial to tell you how to do the granny stitch rather than a tutorial to tell you how to do this. And I can't make my mind up whether it's got buttons down it, whether it's like a coat dress. I actually don't think it does. I actually think it just goes over the top. Which, you know, when you're my kind of shape, it's not, I mean, she's wearing it with some great huge yellow shoes. I mean, Nathan did suggest I could wear it with tights, like nude coloured tights, and I'm like, no, that's not an improvement. Not with a figure like mine. You know, so that's, so I don't know any of you are Swifties, as I believe her followers are called, is it Swifties? Whether you're going to make one. If I had granddaughters who wanted one, great-granddaughters who wanted one, I dare say I'd have a go. Or if somebody would pay me lots of money to make one for them, I would have a go. But for myself, no. I'd have to wear it with trousers or a skirt or something underneath it. I never walk about with anything above the knee. Wrong generation, wrong age group, wrong figure, let's be honest, wrong figure. I think oversized baggy things look fantastic on somebody slender. You know, somebody with a little waif-like figure. But when you're big like me, something oversized just makes you look like you're wearing a giant paper bag. Doesn't flatter. You know, like that with legs hanging out the end. I went into Marks and Spencer's to get myself a little bit of food and different things like that. And I actually got chatted up. He was a lovely man. He was 82. And he was telling me all about his wife who'd died and different things. We were having a real good old chat. And I always stop and talk to anybody that's elderly. Says me, who's elderly myself. But I always stop, and if anybody like elderly wants to talk to me, I talk to them. And I sat in my scooter actually. That was what drew him to me. He was like, oh, that's a good scooter, blah, 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 blah. You know, my wife used to have a smaller one when we got into the subject. And he just wanted to talk. And I thought, well, you know, I wasn't in a rush. You know, too many people these days don't want to listen to anybody elderly. It's happened to me. Happens to everybody, doesn't it? But everybody's in so much of a rush. And I often think, maybe they don't have anybody to talk to at home. Maybe they live alone. And my mum used to always say to me, chat to them. You could be the only person that said hello to them that day. So I let him go on, and he was telling me all about his wife being a good seamstress and how this and that and the other, and he lived on his own now, and he was talking about a slow cooker pot and how he cooked these things and he put them in the freezer and all this, So I just nodded and nodded. And then he was saying, oh, you should come to this club, he named it, I can't remember what it was called. It's great on a Thursday, but you've got to get in before 12, otherwise you won't get a seat, especially if a coach party comes in. They have a lovely organist there and a drummer, and he used to want to be playing at Blackpool Tower. Now I'm old enough to remember Reginald Dixon and the big massive organ that they had at Blackpool Tower that used to rise up out of the floor, and it was like one of the 7 wonders of the world, you know, back in the day. We didn't have a lot of things like telly back in the day. So when this organ came out, Reginald Dixon was playing this organ, everybody was like, oh, wonderful, wonderful. And then there was a big dance floor, and of course all the couples would get up. And I don't mean the jiggy dab dancing, I mean proper dancing. You know, ballroom dancing, the waltz, quick step, the volita. Who remembers the volita? We did all this at school actually, but it was a girls' school, so I had to dance with another girl. Not quite the same, is it, you know. And I never actually got to put my skills, dashing white sergeant and all that. I'm sure you all remember those. You know, when you had to do all this. The barn dance. I used to like the barn dance when I was younger, because we used to go to the dance hall and we used to do a progressive barn dance, which meant every time you turned around you changed partners. So you got to dance with some quite dishy young men. They'd be there with their partner, but of course their partner had danced off to the next man, to the next man, to the next man. So we would get a chance to chat and talk to their boyfriend without getting killed. Or at least frozen with a look like, what you doing talking to my boyfriend type of thing, I used to like that, Sometimes it would line you up with a partner, the last waltz. I don't know whether you ever did this. Ladies I'm talking to at the moment, maybe the gents. You felt like if a guy asked you for the last waltz, you were in there with a chance. I don't mean the drunken ones who've been ignoring you all night, and then they thought, she's not too bad, we'll walk her home, you know, we were meeting with a chance. I don't mean those. We all had those, didn't we? You know, the drunken ones, yeah. We all had those. I had a share of those, yeah. We're back to the story, aren't we? Kissing a lot of frogs before you meet a handsome prince. Anyway, as I was saying, he was chatting away to me about this club I was supposed to go to, and they played bingo. I must remember to tell Sheila, they played bingo. And he was even telling me how much the tickets were and whether they ever won. And then he was going on about he was going on a coach trip. And he could recommend them, and he was personal friends with these people, and if ever I wanted to go anywhere, you know, just have a word with him. I thought, I'm not asking where you live, I'm not asking anything about it, don't want to encourage you. I mean, he was a lovely man, don't get me wrong. But as you know, I'm not in the market for looking for a man of any description, really. Sweet as he was. But we passed a good 3/4 of an hour, I think, chatting. And he wanted to carry on chatting, but I thought, I've got to cut this short. I'll never get home for tea, you know. I'll never get home to go out to knit club at this rate, you know. But it was nice. What, 3/4 of an hour out of my day. It was nothing really, was it, you know. And you're thinking, maybe I'm the only person he spoke to all day. Maybe I made his day, chatting back to him. Who knows? I don't know. Yeah, but I always do make a point, unless I'm in an absolute rushing hurry. If somebody starts to talk to me, I always talk to them. In fact, I used to have a boyfriend when we used to go out for a drink. He used to say, if ever I have to go to the gents, when I come back, you're always talking to somebody. I don't know how you do it. And I said, I don't do anything. I said, they come and they talk to me. My ex-husband used to say, it's your fault. You smile. Sorry. When somebody smiles at me, am I not supposed to smile back? You know. And he said, that's an invitation, he said, for them to come and talk to you when you smile. I mean, we'd be out sometimes, me and my ex sometimes, and I knew vaguely a lot of people. Because if you've ever had a shop, you know a lot of people. You don't know them, but they know you, yeah? So you can be in the middle of no place and somebody will come up, hello Janet, how are you doing? We once went up the Great Orme, which is a mountain in Llandudno in Wales. And we'd gone up on the cable car. And we decided it closed, the cable car closed for lunch. So we thought, no, it's a lovely day, we'll stay at the top of Great Orme. We'll have a bit of lunch in the cafe. What we didn't realise was, of course, the cafe shut at the same time as the cable car did. So we were marooned at the top of Great Orme. So to pass the time, you know, fascination, we went looking at the graveyard, which you do, don't you, you know. And it was lots and lots of sailors, and they were, and miners. And the ages of them were so young, you know. So we got wrapped up looking at these gravestones and reading the inscriptions, you know, lost at sea, lost on, you know, in the mine collapsed and stuff like that. And we're wandering around, and then this voice said, hello Janet, are you marooned up here as well? And I turned around to see this couple, I hadn't got a clue who they were. So I'm going, oh hello, how are you? You know, you do, very polite. And when they'd wandered off, my ex is like, who were them? I said, oh, no idea. Well, they obviously knew you because they knew your name. And I'm like, yeah, but don't forget, you know, with having the shop, it could be a customer who comes in, and I used to know my regular customers, don't get me wrong. You know, the ones who came in every week, the ones you saw all the time, I knew them. I used to make a point of trying to remember the names. Can't do it now. Names, But back in the day when I was younger and I had a memory, my dad used to say, you should remember people's names because it makes them feel important. Yeah. So if you can greet them when they come in the shop saying, hello Mrs. Such-a-body, hello Mrs. So-and-so, and try to remember what they're knitting or what they're crocheting if you can, you know, and say, how are you getting on with? Makes them feel important, doesn't it? And we all need to feel important. And that is why I want to say thank you so much to everybody who left me lovely comments and made me feel quite important. It's a lovely feeling that you can't put a price on. You really can't. You can't put a price on somebody saying something nice to you, compliment to you. I'm not fishing for compliments, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you have to say something nice to me today. But it's nice when you do. And I always try to make a point, if I see someone in the street and they're wearing something particularly nice, which doesn't happen very often in Fleetwood because they're all quite boring with what they wear, but that's another story. So if I see somebody go past me with a lovely dress on, I will say, oh, I hope you don't mind me saying, but that dress is lovely. Really suits you. And you can see somebody glow, can't you? And I think it costs nothing, does it, to say something nice to somebody. Or, you know, I really like that cardigan, jacket, coat. Or what lovely shoes you've got on, you know. Anything, something. But that's my dad and mostly my dad's upbringing. Because he was always in the shop. He always, before he worked in the wool shop with me, he always was a butcher. And he used to say, there's lots of butchers locally. I need the customers to come back in all the time, yeah. So, he said half of the time they used to come in, sit on the wooden bench that he had, and they'd meet another lady and they'd be sitting having a, you know, it's like mother's meeting on the bench. He said, I never hurried them up, I never rushed them. He says, and I always tried to remember their name. And I'll say, oh, what would you like today, Mrs. Such-a-body? You know, what would you like? And some of them would say, oh, call me Rose, I come in every day, call me Rose. So he would try to remember, she wants to be called Rose, yeah. And he said that was why he built his custom up in the shop. Because people were made to feel important that few moments that they came in. They might only come in for some mincemeat or, you know, a couple of chops or something that was negligible money-wise, but he made them feel like they were spending an absolute fortune in the shop. And that's what you need, you know. It's missing so much. Everybody's in a rush. You go in a supermarket these days and the cashier hardly looks up. They just, everything down the, you know. They don't say, oh, hello, how are you, all right, or something like that. I mean, in the old days, they used to say, do you need any help with your packing? Are you okay? Or they'd say something like, did you notice that the sprouts were on special offer, or something like that. But nowadays, you're lucky if they break off the conversation that they're having with the cashier on the next till. You're lucky if they even notice you. And they push the things down the conveyor belt. I said to one the other day, hang on a minute, love. I said, I can't pack them. I said, you're squashing me bread, because he was shoving the tins and stuff down on top of me bread. I said, hold on a minute, love. I mean, she did actually look up and say, oh, sorry, shall I go a bit slower? I said, yeah, if you wouldn't mind. I said, I can't pack as quick as you can throw it down the conveyor belt, you know. I mean, what happened to the days where you used to have somebody stood at the end? Or I used to love it when the youngsters used to be at the end. And they'd be collecting for the scouts, whatever it was. And they'd get permission, wouldn't they, off the store to stand at the end and say, would you like help with your bag packing? And I always used to say yes, because I used to think the small amount of money I'm putting in their tin, you know, their collection tin, it will all mount up at the end of the day. Even if you only give them 50 pence or £1, you know. it would help them with their funds for the scout hut or whatever it was they were collecting for. And I used to love it. I mean, they used to throw the things in the bag. You could always tell the ones who'd been shopping with their mum because they packed the bag properly. They put the tins at the bottom if you were buying tins or the heavy stuff at the bottom. But you get the young ones who obviously never shopped in their life and they'd throw everything in, and I'm going, whoa, 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 just hang on a minute, don't just put my bread in last. Otherwise you'd finish up with squashed bread, you know, that never recovered, did it, yeah? So I've had a good day really, all in all. I've had a good day. I discovered a channel, I don't know whether I told you about it. It's a historian lady called Lucy. Yeah, I'm sure she's called Lucy. It's called Through Lucy's Lens. She's based in Birmingham, and she goes round these places like prefabs that have been redone and decorated in the same manner that they were in just after the war. If you're in America, you may not know what I'm talking about. They were like prefabricated houses, usually made of tin or something, that they threw up to put people in whose houses had been bombed out and things like that during the war, and they're literally homeless. And they built them, these little prefabricated houses. They were only meant to last 10 years. But for people, it was, oh, they had a bathroom. Some of them had heating. You know, they had things that they'd never had in their maybe slum houses that had been bombed out. And she goes to them and she looks round, and I mean, I'm of the generation where I had friends who actually lived in prefabs, yeah. And then I watched one yesterday. She was doing these back-to-back houses. Probably you have no idea what I'm talking about if you're an American. They were one up, one down houses. They had a door and a window. And if you were lucky, you got the one that looked out onto the street. If you weren't lucky, you got the one that looked out onto the courtyard at the back, yeah? So instead of having like a window on both sides of your house or whatever, you only had a window because the back wall was the wall of the house that was behind you, if you're with me. That's why they call them back-to-back houses. And they shared a great long line of public, well, toilets that were meant for the people who lived. And remember, they weren't flushing toilets back in the day. Sorry if you're eating, but they weren't. And you didn't have your own. You know, it wasn't yours, that's my toilet, get out of it. You just shared with everybody because there wasn't enough to go round, you know. But I can remember when I was in the infant school, one of my friends, she lived in one. And I was like fascinated because there was like one room downstairs, a staircase going up, and one room upstairs. And there was her mum and her dad and her and her brother. And it kind of fascinated me that they were all in this one bedroom. And like the downstairs room, it was just very, very basic. It had a table. Instead of a tablecloth, they had newspaper. Obviously, they were a lot poorer than we were. And the kitchen sink was like behind doors. You opened these doors and the kitchen sink was there. But that would have been one, they did have running water, which was great. That would be the one source that they would wash themselves, wash the dishes, do everything. And they had this little freestanding cooker. And as I say, they had this table, and it had salt and vinegar on it, a bottle of sauce, it would be HP, like brown sauce on it, and a bottle of sterilised milk. Because of course they wouldn't have a fridge or anything like that. Oh, and a sugar bowl, yeah. And I remember going home with her one day from school, and she was saying, I'm hungry, I'm hungry. She was a latchkey kid, her parents both worked. And she goes, I wonder what there is. She opened this cupboard and there was absolutely nothing in the cupboard, nothing. And she was looking round and she was going, oh, thought there might have been a bit of bread. Bear in mind there was no butter, no nothing. And that was my first kind of introduction to poverty, really. Anybody that was really, really poor. And this historian was talking about it. She was talking to a lady who lived in a back-to-back house. And she was saying that revisiting it brought back memories. But most of all, it brought back the smell. And I can remember to this day that smell as I went in the house. It wasn't dirty, anything like that. I would used to describe it as the smell of poverty. And you could smell it on people because they didn't have a bathroom or anything like that. And I still can smell it in my nostrils if I think about it as a poverty smell. And this lady was saying to this historian, like, just coming here today, I can smell the poverty smell. And I thought, I know what she's talking about. I know what she means. But I do like watching that. It's called Through Lucy's Lens, I think it's called. And she visits quite a lot of places. She visits, I mean, a lot of them, like, they've been recreated in museums, if you're with me. But these back-to-back houses were the last houses in the UK, I think. They're in Birmingham somewhere. And they're done by the National Heritage. I think you pay £10 or something for a guided tour around them. Yeah, but that sort of thing really interests me. I remember watching a TV programme about a house. And they did this house through different eras. And they would decorate this house like in the style of the 1920s. They would do it all with the furniture. And they had this family living in it, living how they would have lived in the 1920s. They had 1920s food, you know, the 1920s cooker, stove, whatever you want to call it. No hot water, of course, obviously, things like that. And then they would move on and then they'd do 1930s, 1940s, 1950s, all that. And I found it really, really fascinating because, of course, these children had never known anything like it. Even the parents really hadn't. Whereas to somebody of my age, I knew people who did live like in the 40s, the 50s, 60s. And we did have this rationing and we did have shortages of food. And to be quite honest, it would do a lot of people a lot of good these days, learning how to eke out food and to make things. I think I've mentioned before, my mum was absolutely great at making something out of nothing. You know, she could spread a little bit of mincemeat round, she could make potato pies and apple pies and everything. Here we go again with this. And I don't know whether any of you remember things like that from your childhood. Not particularly me, because I never went without food. I was very lucky, I never went without food. We weren't rich, we were quite poor, but we always had something on the table, and we always had shoes, and we always had clothes. Usually hand-me-down clothes, you know, that came from my richer cousins. But that sort of thing didn't worry me at all. Anyway, have you got memories like that? Have you got things that you like to watch and think about? And please, if you see somebody elderly who wants to talk to you, do spare them a few minutes. Stop what you're doing and talk to them, because you could be the only person that they speak to that day. Could be you one day when you get old. Could be me one day nobody speaks to me. Could be me. Anyway, if you like this video, thumbs up please, like and subscribe. And I have got some new subscribers, thank you all so, so much. As they say, share it with your friends. Tell them all how wunderbar I am. Well, I'm not really, but you can persuade them that I'm great, you know. Anyway, bye for now. I'm off to the cafe tomorrow with my friends. So bye for now. Have a happy Wednesday. Bye now.